Welcome to this second episode of Lounge with Loretta. Today, I'm going to be talking to Nathan Caselton, who is a director over at the Actors Studio, which is based at PINEWOOD Studios. And we are going to be talking about everything to do with acting, directing, personal growth, manifestation, and all sorts of other things. So I hope you enjoy it. Hi, Nathan.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm really good. I can't believe you're sitting in front of me and I get to sort of take control of this situation.
It's a new one.
It's a new one.
I'm used to interviewing and directing people, and now
yeah. Does it feel a
total
bit uncomfortable?
I should be that side of the camera.
You should be that side of the camera, and now you're not. Now you're at the mercy of me.
Yeah.
So Nathan, you are the creative director at Actors Studio, which is based in PINEWOOD Studios, Buckinghamshire.
Yeah.
Which is how you and I met.
Yeah.
How long have you been there for?
So I've been there probably coming up to 9 years now.
Gosh.
And in that time, you know, it's evolved. It's changed a lot. You know, it's gone from being in one of the world's biggest studios, but being a reasonably small business, to now, you know, we're sort of growing out into international territories. So, but it's been a fantastic and exciting 9 years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing place to base yourself. Like the energy there must be absolutely insane when it's busy, but it's not always busy, obviously.
No, Pinewood. I mean, this year is busy and ever. I mean, there's things that I can't talk about.
Of course. Well, can you?
No,
you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to.
There's things that I'm not allowed to talk about.
Okay, I shan't ask.
But it is just for any filmmaker, for any want-to-be director, for any camera person. There is no better place to be. You are literally at the epicenter of European, you know, potentially worldwide film. You know, all the biggest movies are shot there. Star Wars, Mission Impossible, James Bond, all the Marvel films. So you're surrounded by like-minded individuals. And, you know, people come into offices and, you know, they go to work and they get their coffee in the morning and they sit down, they do their thing. Whereas Pinewood is, I don't know, it's like this. It's like an old woman.
An old woman?
Yeah.
Steady
it's like
on.
being in an old woman.
Is it? Oh, God. Yeah. And is that pleasant or is that unpleasant?
I probably should... there's better ways of wording it.
Yeah, it's all right. We'll get to that. We can revisit that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is because there's so much history there.
Yeah.
You know, the Carry On films were made there.
Or an old man.
Yes.
Could be an old man.
An old man. That sounds better.
Yeah.
But there's so much history there, and you know, you're surrounded by the world's most influential filmmakers on a daily basis.
Yeah, mad.
Who you're just brushing shoulders with, getting coffee. Yeah. So for me, you know, as still, you know, I when do you class yourself as a director? Who knows? Who's still learning and taking things in about the industry.
Yeah, but we all are.
There. Yeah,
we're all doing that. But I mean, that's like a monumental place to be doing it. Just on the energetic scale and like the talent and all this sort of stuff. So how did you end up there? Because you're relatively young.
Yeah.
And I'm like so super amazed that you've achieved this and you've been there for 9 years. Yeah. So how did you fall into this particular space?
Yeah. So my career / life has been a sort of, I think Steve Jobs put it best, is connecting the dots. And I really resonate with that because life is about achieving things and not necessarily knowing that you've achieved them until you look back and you can connect the bridges and connect the dots and see, oh, it was that led me to here. So, you know, there is no one simple answer to say, oh, I did this and then it ended up with me being at Pinewood. But I've kind of had a camera in my hand since I was a baby. You know, there are pictures of me as 7-8-year-old Nathan, you know, with a camera in my hand and filming stuff on holidays and just always being obsessed with cameras generally.
Like a musician would be with a, you know, guitar or drums or something like that.
Absolutely.
They're sort of playing it in the womb, so you're probably doing that in the womb. Yeah,
just totally obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And you know, watching films as a kid was one thing, but watching the behind the scenes of the films, that was what interested me.
How funny.
And connecting those things together. So that then led to me just having this obsession. And I suppose over the years I've basically done anything that leads towards film. So I had a period of working in radio. I was a volunteer on my local radio station, and that really opened some networking doors for me and made me grow up incredibly fast, because I've gone from being an 11-year-old, 12-year-old at school to volunteering at a local radio station, which was run by some pretty well-connected people in the radio industry.
Yeah. Wait, so hang on. How old were you when you were doing that?
11. I was
Stop it.
I was 11 years old.
I mean, that's ridiculously young and so impressive.
It's insane. Yeah. So I'm at secondary school, and then I spent my weekends at a radio station in Watford. It was called Vibe 107.6. It's still going now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different crowd and it's a different group of people running it now, but you know, there were some guys there, Matt Cabman, who's you know, pretty well connected in the radio industry, who founded and set up the station. And it really just, all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is where I'm meant to be, surrounded by adults.
Yeah.
And then I'd go back to school and I'd be like, oh, everyone's just so young.
Yeah.
With the same age, but you're just so mentally young.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, sort of fast forwarding that, I did a few years at the radio, and people started to ask me to do things that I didn't know how to do. So
What kind of things?
I would get asked, oh, can you ever made a website?
Yeah.
Never made a website in my life. I said yes. I was like, yeah, I can make a website. So anyway, fast forward a few weeks, I found myself, I'm building this monumental website for people, for this football blog, which I had no interest. Can't stand football. Had no interest in.
Love it.
Building this huge website. Anyway, fast forward to today, and I've now built probably over 200 websites and got a big web design company, and we build for small businesses, big businesses, everything. So that opened more networking doors, and then again, I'm still getting to the point where it's like, how did you end up at Pinewood?
Yes.
But that opened a network. And then I realized that, okay, I don't like education. Education's not for me. I like working and just doing it. I'm a practical, hands-on person. So then fast forwarding a few years, I ended up doing an apprenticeship. And that apprenticeship was in film, TV and marketing. Mm-hmm. And that apprenticeship was based at Pinewood.
Oh, I see.
So I went from being in school, kind of had to rattle through my years of doing what you have to do from a legal requirement of school, finish that up, and I was like, right, what's the quickest way that I can get into work? Yeah. Either go to university or go and do sixth form, your A-levels, or go and do an apprenticeship. So I started A-levels and was like, fuck this, I'm out. Went and did the apprenticeship, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I got some adults in the room.
Yeah,
this
now,
is good.
Now you've arrived,
this is fun.
Thing. Yeah.
So then I'm doing this apprenticeship at Pinewood, and just had to sort of figure it out from there. And then 10 years on, I'm still figuring out what the hell I'm doing.
You're doing a bloody good job is what you're doing, because that's how you and I met.
Yeah.
And actually, it's interesting now that you mention that, because this kind of collision, so to speak, started from a phone call from me.
Yes.
At Actors Studio, with you not even answering, by the way. I think it rang off or something like that. And then somebody came back to me on an email, and then someone followed up, and that someone was you. You called me instead of just, following up from your call. And we then discussed, what I was up to at the time. And I was trying to put some scenes together for my show reel. And I was like, who is this guy? He's amazing, because he's called me back. Nobody does that. No. Nobody chases your business, really, I don't think. They're kind of like, you know what, we missed a call, big deal. They'll call back if they want something. Yeah. And then you and I connected on a creative scale and I think on a personal scale as well. I was on the phone to you for about an hour. Yeah. So I was like, sold. Of course I'm going to give you all this money and come and do my show reel with you. But also the fact that it was, it was at Pinewood was a big win. Yeah. And you sounded like you knew exactly what you were doing. Yeah. So you gave me that impression, and you lived to confirm that. Yeah. That you are doing an amazing job there.
Well, it's funny. The phone call thing, that is a real... That's just one funny set of circumstances, because I'm terrible at speaking on the phone to customers.
No, you're not.
Because I just get so bored.
Oh, well, obviously I was not boring you, because we were having a right old laugh on the phone. Do you not remember?
No, I do. No, I do remember.
I hope so. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, in terms of knowing what I'm doing, it's because I've had to figure it out. So when actors or filmmakers especially are so early on in their career, I resonate with them immediately. I connect with them straight away when they're saying, oh, I'm really struggling with this. I've been there, done that, bud. Yeah. Talk to me. What are your struggles here? Because there is no one quick fix in the film industry. And I don't think there's any school, whether it's RADA for actors, whether it's London Film School, the Met, wherever, there is nowhere you can go that's going to give you the badge that says this guy's going to direct a big movie. Yeah. Everyone's got their own journey, and mine has just been a journey of absorbing as much as I possibly can from anyone I'm with, asking a million questions and actually applying that. I struggle in today's age when I'm teaching and coaching people and giving people an opportunity to learn something, and they come in and they shadow, and I'm like, oh, see, on a really practical level, look at how to put up this light stand, and you show them, and then they figure it out and they try it, and they're like, oh yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
And then they try it again and they can't. It's like, what's the blockage there?
Yes.
So I struggle with that side, but yeah, I've just had to figure it out as I go. I've just had to, I've made those mistakes. I've been there, I fucked up. And
yeah. And that's a great way to do it, because a lot of life is trial and error. I mean, that is life, isn't it? It's like you can be told so many times how to do something a certain way, but you kind of have to experience it, I think, yourself. Yeah. And then you kind of, sometimes you learn, sometimes you don't. And you'll still keep getting that lesson again until you realise, oh, fuck, actually, I should have done it this way.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that after 9 years, you obviously know it inside out. And so how do you keep things sort of fresh? I'm guessing the sheer volume of like actors that are coming your way is going to put, you're not so sure. Some yes, some no. But how do you keep things sort of fresh for you?
So outside of working, I like to just absorb life. And I've kind of realised only in these later years, I say later years, I'm still young, but in more recent years, that I'm really interested in psychology.
Yeah, I love that you are, because me too.
Yeah, and it's just labelling that. It's realising that, oh, I'm really interested in psychology because I read about people. I people watch. I try and if I ever get public transport, which I'll confess is quite rare.
Yes, I hear.
Because I drive everywhere.
Yeah.
But even in the car, I'm people watching. Yeah. And I'm always sat there thinking, what's that person thinking right now?
Yeah. So you're curious and you're observant.
That's it. And I will take that, pinch it, and apply it to my work. And if you do that 3-4 times a week, you're always going to have something fresh, because the world is always, presenting something new to us.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite a good technique for actors. Just on your way, wherever you go to next, just watch someone and look at their body language and think, what are they thinking right now? And you can apply that to a performance.
Yeah, you can.
You can take that and think, okay, well, they were sort of doing this with their hands, or they were sort of looking down and they were kind of coy about it. What is it that they were doing that made you think that? And then, pinch that and apply it to something that you're doing. So that's one thing I do to try and keep it fresh. And I think the other thing is to have a good or a reasonably good understanding of the world around us, not just your own bubble, but as a filmmaker and certainly actor studio, I'm very lucky to work with hundreds of actors from all over the world. Yeah, right. Yeah. And if I was to just direct my British way of being Nathan and say, right, you need to do it like this, you need to do it like that, it just wouldn't work. I'd end up clashing with actors. But I've been very fortunate to work with so many different people from all different parts of the world with different cultures and beliefs and religions.
Yeah. So you're exposed to all of that, and you can't help but take that on board.
You have to. Yeah. You have to. Yeah. And I really embrace that. And that's why when I go on holiday, I most people go on holiday and they just kind of die on a beach somewhere. Yeah. I like to go there and suss out the vibe. And I'm inquisitive. If I'm in a corner shop on holiday, I want to ask the guy what it's like to live there. Yeah. So how long have you lived here? I've lived here my whole life. Amazing. Why?
Why?
Why are you still here? What do you love about it? Tell me 3 things you love about living in Thailand or living in Bangkok, wherever it is that these people are. Yeah. People in Florida, it's like, why do you live here? What do you love most about Florida? And I ask all these questions, and it sort of sends me home with things to think about and to ponder on. And then the next time I'm directing something, I'm like, oh yeah, that guy in Florida, that was an interesting story. Let me throw that into the mix. I'm not going to sit an actor down and say, by the way, I met this guy in Florida, and I think it'd be really cool if you pretended to be like him and brought the accent with you. And no. But it informs me as a person and my understanding of different cultures. Absolutely.
And that's so much more beneficial than just sort of like being stum the whole time, right? Yeah. Where people tend to be. And I think as an actor, it's a funny one, because you're sort of, you want to be free to express yourself, but you also need someone to direct you, obviously, and tell you what to do. But you need someone who's coming from a really interesting place. And that's why I loved working with you, because you're really personable. You are curious on life and all sorts, it's part of who you are, part of your makeup. And that was really refreshing, because it was so helpful to work with someone who had a totally different perspective. Because a lot of the time, you can just work with somebody who's really linear and
Yeah.
really very much like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And
This is my way.
This is
how I'm
my
doing
way.
it. Yeah.
And there's the door if you don't like
Yeah.
it, you know, and that's when you go, oh God, okay, you really
Yeah.
you have to put your ego aside, and you have to get used to working with so many different people's opinions and ways of functioning.
Yeah.
But you're very free to work with. I think you had, you know, you're imaginative, and it makes sense now because you are feeding that curiosity in your day-to-day life, as opposed to just sort of going in and, you know, going through the motions and showing up as, right, I'm Nathan, I'm based at, you know, Actors Studio. It's like, no, you're filling.
Yeah. And I think actors like to feel understood. You know, again, over the years, having worked with fucking ruin the mic, having worked with so many different actors over the years, I've realised what it is that they like and don't like and what they respond to.
Yeah.
And making an actor feel understood, you get the best out of them. You'll go straight to the childhood trauma immediately.
Always.
Yeah.
Oh my God, always.
But they've
This
got
is
to
why
feel
they're
safe to do
actors.
that.
But that's why they're actors. Because
Yeah.
beneath that is someone who desperately wants to be seen.
Yeah.
And desperately needs to be heard.
Yeah.
And
There's
I'm vouching for that.
There's always something there.
Yeah.
And I can identify it straight away. So then I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring to you my version. As a director, you have to be a chameleon. You know, one minute I've got to be the big, you know, show who's just going to overperform and be everything and be the energy of the room.
Yes.
And sometimes I've got to kind of sit down and say, look, so how are you feeling about the scene?
Yeah.
And depending on who I'm working with, you know, I always say, if I wore a GoPro during the entire day of a shoot, you'd think this guy's on serious class A's.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just off his rocker.
Off the chart.
He's off the chart. But you just have to, I mean, I have to act all day. I have to literally start acting from the minute I arrive at call time.
Yeah.
And perform for the crew, then perform for the different actors. But it's to make them feel understood. It's to make them feel like you, the director, who they're putting their faith into, gets them.
I love this. And it was fascinating to watch. And that was something else that stood out for me when we were at Pinewood and I was working on my show reel. And, you know, you do your scene and then you get to sit in and watch someone else. And that for me is like one of the best things because you're so freaking relieved that your scene's done.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre because once you're up there, you're loving it. You're in the moment. And you're like, I really don't want to get down. I don't want to get off. Like, can we keep going?
Yeah,
Can we do another take? Or another take?
Yeah.
And then you stop and you get back and you sit down and you watch, if you're lucky enough to see everyone else perform their scenes. And then I was like watching the crew and I was watching you and I was like, God, I can't really do it because of the mic, but you know, you were doing these ones with your, and I was like, what's he doing? It's amazing. It's mesmerizing. So actually I was watching you more than I was the actors, thinking, how on earth are you doing this? But yeah, you're performing, you've got so many different hats on.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of work behind what you do.
There is. There's what I call the director's triangle.
What's that?
And I'm thinking about writing a book on it, but I can't be fucked.
Do you know, you must do it.
I should do, but it's really boring. But anyway, I call it the director's triangle, and it's a sort of system that I've come up with, and that is camera, blocking, which refers to where you're stood or what you're doing within a scene, and the performance.
Okay.
And each of those affect one another. You can't change one without affecting the other two. Okay, and it's each of those have a sort of subset. So, for example, camera, you've got things such as lens choices. You've got type of film that you're shooting on if you're shooting stock or you know, camera choices, whatever. Then with blocking, you know, the movement within the scene, but that is all informed by the performance.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm telling an actor, oh, I think you should get up at this moment, I've got to back it up with the performance. Why are you going to get up at that moment?
Yeah.
You know, you can't just stand up in favor of camera. You have to let it be informed by the other part of that triangle. So, you know, when I'm working with young filmmakers or sometimes older filmmakers that are learning how to direct actors and they come and work with me, I'll refer to the triangle. And I say, just use, if you want to do one thing, such as move the camera, it's got to be informed by the performance and the blocking. If you want to change the blocking, it's got to be informed by the camera and the performance. And then lastly, the performance, you know, if you're going to change that, that's got to come from the text. That's got to come from the script, which is all where it comes from.
It's fascinating.
And that's, I didn't set out and think, right, this is my rule book. I've never read about filmmaking, really. I've just...
You're just a natural.
Yeah,
You're just
I was
you are
born
though.
amazing. No, but it's just instinct, some of it.
Well, some of it, but you've got to have the instinct to get on board with that, and you clearly do.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of multitasking. I mean, I was like, shit, I just need to remember my lines, do you know, and give a good performance.
Yeah.
And we will get to that because we've got a funny story with that, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm about to talk about. But it's there's so much to consider, even as the actor, and you're not the part of the crew, but you are you're surrounded by the crew, and you're at the mercy of the crew.
Yeah.
So, in addition to sort of showing up and doing a fucking amazing job, you've still got to consider everyone else's role, right?
Yeah.
So, and I learned that. That was a really interesting lesson to learn, because we have a tendency to just go, well, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Good luck, everyone.
Good luck, everyone, kind of thing. It's like, oh no, you're working as a team here.
Yeah. As an actor, you are a cog in a moving machine. And if you stop, the whole machine will slow down. Or you'll have a really bad effect on the other moving cogs. And I always say to actors, you know, if you want employability skills for screen acting and you want to work again, bear in mind, this crew, that AD, that director, who do they feed back to? They feed back to the producer.
Yeah.
Who's the producer? Well, they're the ones with the money.
Yep.
They're the ones managing that at the most senior level. So if you're slowing down the other cogs, they're going to know about it, and they're not going to want to work with you again. So
important.
You've got to be able to understand what everyone else is doing in the crew, or to a certain extent. You know, you don't necessarily need to totally understand what a first AC does in and out, but be at least aware that they're the ones that pull focus and they're going to be talking to you.
Yeah, I think that's so key. It's like you just be aware of your surroundings as well. It's like, don't just sort of show up and think everything's just going to sort of effortlessly kind of fall into place. It's like, no, be aware that actually it's a really long day and everybody's like busy doing what they need to do, but everyone's also reliant on everyone else.
You ever been shopping and someone's not aware and you're like, can you just move? Because you're right in the way.
Well, it's like when you go on an escalator and someone likes to get off right at the top or right at the bottom, and then they pull the phone out and they check the phone. You're like, hello, could you please just move?
We've got moving traffic here.
Keep going.
Don't be that person on set.
Don't be that person on set. And also, I feel like have a bit of a sense of humour.
Yeah.
You might not get to use it, but it's also helpful tonight. Pull that out of the bag, I think, because they're long days, right? And if you want to work with these people again, it's good to kind of get on with everyone and just, you know, make an effort.
Yeah.
So,
and it's a bit like family in that if you're working in that crew or you're working in that cast, you don't get to choose them. It's like, right, here's the cast, here's the crew. You're with them for the next 6 months. Good luck, everyone.
Yeah, that's
Buckle
true.
up.
That's true. So how do you work through, okay, let's talk about this. So how do you navigate, and I'm sure you have it, because everybody's so different.
Yeah.
And you're a director, so you're you can throw your weight around.
Yeah.
What do you do? And be honest, what do you do when you're in a situation where you're like, oh God, I'm really actually struggling with whoever it is? What if you struggle with an actor?
Yeah.
How do you?
Which happens a lot.
Fire 'em.
So starting off with, I'll start off with actors, because that's a kind of easy one. When an actor's not getting it, or when an actor's resistant, coming back to, I then just have to go back into chameleon mode. I
understood that.
And good. And switch characters.
Yeah, you do. You're having to act.
Yeah, I have to act more. Yeah. So I can come in and be myself. There's friction. Okay, that's not working. Fine. Cool. We'll pick this guy today, and then I will play that character. And all of a sudden, they'll be nice as pie.
Yeah,
and
love it.
What am I doing? I'm just manipulating.
But that's great that you're able to do that, because some people aren't prepared to do it. They're like, this is how it is. It's my way or the highway. So it's like props to you for being able to go, okay, you know what? I'm going to just jump into this jumpsuit and just behave in this fashion.
Yeah, you have to. And what's hilarious is, without even realising, that actor will still give me what I wanted, but make it feel like that it was their
I know,
thing.
you've got like the Midas touch with that. I mean, I got to watch you work. It was amazing. And there were some interesting people in my class, weren't there? There's some... It's a mixed bag, and some that I would say, it's really fascinating when you watch somebody so utterly self-absorbed in what they're doing, and to the degree where it's like they can't deviate from, any instruction or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it's like how, you've got to sort of really nurse them through their scene almost.
Yeah.
So they feel as though
yes.
You're doing it right, or but
well
they're very
done.
protective of
patting on the back.
Yeah.
So that's with crew. That's with cast. Sorry, you've got to just go into your drawer and pull it out. With crew, I don't tend to, being totally honest, and this makes it sound like a breeze, it's not. I don't tend to have a lot of conflicts with crew. And I think that comes from having taught myself a lot of what I know. I've worked in a lot of different departments. I've worked in camera, I've worked in sound with the radio background. I've learned a lot about lighting over the years. I've seen what looks good and what doesn't look good from various really, really incredibly talented DOPs and other people in the industry that I've just watched. I've just cut and paste what they've done. So when I talk, I don't talk like someone who knows what they want but doesn't necessarily know how to get there. And I think that's important as a director, is that you have a good enough understanding of what everybody does so that when you're directing them, it sounds respectful. And it is respectful. I'm saying, okay, why don't we just cheat this round or adjust that? Because then the lighting will do this, and as a result, the shot will do that. So I won't just say, I want this. I'll back it up with how we could do that, why we should do that, and the sort of positive outcome.
Yeah, as opposed to just sort of like barking orders and just like
sling
your hook if you're not going to get on board. Yeah.
And as a result, I think that earns you respect, and you've got to earn respect on a set, no matter your level. And don't treat anyone like you wouldn't want to be treated. Now, I'm not saying that I don't have my moments where I'm like, God, you're already getting on my nerves.
Yeah.
But I've learned to just sort of go outside, breathe, and come back in, because you never know who the runner is. The runner could be the son of the exec producer.
Right.
And if you're going, all right, can you get me coffee? All right, off you go.
Yeah.
It's like he's going to go, oh yeah, Dad, that director that you employed today, he's rubbish. He's really rude and nasty to the runners. So.
Yeah, this is it. And people always remember the bad stuff. They don't really tend to take away the good stuff.
No, they're not interested in that. It's bad stuff that sticks, like a Klingon.
Like a Klingon, exactly like a Klingon. So so that's interesting with the crew.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about how you and I work together. So I went to Actor Studio, Pinewood.
Yeah.
Did my scene. I think we had 5 days to shoot 2 scenes.
Yeah.
I took on an awful lot that month and the following month, to the degree where it was like, and also I'm just going to, off the record for everybody watching, learning lines, by the way. That's come later to me in life. Like I had to work really tirelessly hard at that.
Yeah.
Some people are naturally really gifted and they're like, do you know what? I've just read it once and guess what? I've totally memorized the whole thing.
Yeah.
Me, 4,000 times. What's that line? So, and I actually fluffed my lines. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like the most mortifying thing that can happen. But actually get used to it, because, not you, actors, because it does happen. And it happens to people who are really obviously well established. And, I think it's important. The message for me is like, to other actors who struggle with the lines, it's normal. I think it's normal. And it doesn't matter how much preparation it's. Sometimes you do have days where you just can't recall them as well as... You're looking at me as if to say, Loretta, you're talking absolute nonsense. But some days you can't. Some days, and you don't know what's going on in people's lives,
No, you don't. And I think lines are, ultimately, the thing I say to the actors is learn the lines, right? That's just the number one thing. It's like, I can't help you if you haven't learned the lines. So you've got to learn them inside and out.
Yeah.
But I'm respectful that, like you say, it's like, I've just had a really traumatic morning. Something really awful has happened to me. So, sometimes that has happened, and sometimes an actor won't tell you that, and you've just got to kind of think they could have had the worst morning possible, so I'm not going to come too hard on them.
Sure.
Plus, what help is it going to do if I say, oh, well, you should have learnt your lines?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah, cheers, bud, knew that.
It's a sort of like, it's such a sensitive subject, because it's like, of course, like by definition, by default, an actor should know their lines, regardless of whatever's going on. You should be able to access that immediately. That's a professional. And so, I think someone like me, where I was at that time still learning very much, and that was like a whole new environment for me as well, don't forget. Walking into, it's one thing going and doing an audition in front of like 20 people, but it's another thing where you've got a shit hot setup.
Yeah.
With, I don't know how many crew. I think we had a big crew as well. It's like 9 or 10 people. And then you don't know who you're going to get as your fellow actor. You don't know what scene you're going to get. I'm not making excuses, but you put all of that into the mix. And if you're not a professional yet, because you're still learning that element of the business, I guess.
I always tell actors, do something while you're learning your lines.
Like what? Please tell me. I need some advice.
Don't sit at home and read the paper. Read the script.
Oh, yeah.
Do something. Move around action yourself while you're learning the lines. Do the washing up. Set yourself an obstacle course and complete that obstacle course multiple times while running the script. So that when you're on set and you're thinking, oh my God, what was that line? What was that line? What was that line? Of course, apple, because that's when you pick the apple up when you're at home. And yeah, it's just a muscle that you have to flex. I'll compare it to fitness and, Usain Bolt. He doesn't wait for his next competitive run to run. He was running constantly, but to become the best runner on the planet, right? Or the fastest sprinter. Now, if he just went home and was like, oh, that was good. I did really well there. What is it, 6 months till the next one? Yeah, nice. I'll wait until then. Yeah, he's not going to be very quick, is he? He's got to maintain it. So if you're an actor and you're not currently working, go and fucking work on yourself.
Total. Well, this is it. This is why we're here. So what a amazing lesson to have learned.
Yeah.
Because, and this is just such a funny thing. Also, another thing, the message behind this is like manage your time.
Yeah.
Manage your time, because that was my massive takeaway, because I was like, for me, I was in LA, then I was traveling somewhere else. I was doing another course, as you know. I was writing something of my own. It's too much. You know, it's too much. Just make sure you stay in your lane.
Don't burn out. Yeah.
Don't burn yourself out.
Well,
Don't bite
what
off
are
more than
you
you
on
can chew.
screen as an actor? You are yourself. You're yourself as that role. Is the analogy I love to give actors. I say it's you as the role, Loretta as this character in these given set of circumstances. Now, if Loretta's knackered, worn out, mentally strained, and not looking after herself, guess what? Loretta's version of this character is going to bring that baggage with them to screen.
This is genius to hear.
So
love this. Why did you not tell me this?
I don't know. It's kind of only
better late than never. Carry on.
But it's. And this is the same, very quickly back to my directing. I am what I present on screen. And so if I've not learnt about life, then I'm not going to be able to bring that to screen. And for actors, read about stuff, learn about people, watch people, but also look after yourself.
Yeah, you have to. Self-care is imperative.
If your diet is rubbish, if you're not sleeping well, just on the most basic example, I let's say I'm an actor and I turn up to set. I think, oh my God, I had a really bad night's sleep last night. I feel really tired. I feel really drained. And now I've got to play Jimmy, who's this really, chirpy, happy guy who is just going to bring the, sun. And it's just not going to happen. It's, no actor on the planet can hide a really bad night's sleep.
Absolutely. Because and we were talking about this earlier before we went to camera.
Yeah.
It's like you wear your emotions. You can see it. It's on an energetic scale. You can see what someone's going through.
You
straight
can
in there,
smell it.
You can
smell
smell
it. Like a fart in a lift.
Like a really bad, it really is. And so it's offensive.
Yeah.
So it's like, take care of yourself. Do your research. But high priority. So this was such an amazing lesson for me to learn, because I won't ever do that again. I won't ever commit and overcommit. I will commit to the things I really want to do. But I'm glad that I did it, because out of me working with you, and I don't think you were even supposed to have been on that particular.
No, I wasn't even meant to be there.
So it was like the gods, the universal, law of whatever attraction put us both in the same path. And then the irony is that I fucked my lines up, and yet you cast me for a short.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, these people are never going to want to work with me again. I never want to work with me again. Like, how on earth did that happen? I was so mortified. And then lo and behold, I get a cheeky little call or a text saying, do you want to meet up? I've got a script for you to read.
Yeah.
So what happened?
Tell me. Actors always come away and think about all the bad things. And it's like you said, we always remember the worst stuff. And I do it as a director. I come away from a job and I only remember the things that I don't like about what I've just done, rather than potentially the 80% of really good work that we've achieved. So when you came away, you were thinking, oh dear, what have I done? I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that. Whereas I had seen the good stuff. Yeah. Because as a director, what am I looking for in performance? I'm looking for the good stuff.
Of course.
I'm not sat there looking at, oh, they've done that, oh, they've done this. Yeah. I'm sat there waiting to pick out these good moments to bring them to screen. So as a director, let's say, I've had actors who totally fall apart and their lines are just all over the place.
Well, that was me, surely.
No.
Wasn't that bad, was it?
I've had people I've fed them line by line. You know, you just lost a couple of lines here and there, and we were like, oh, let's just pick it up from here. Oh, it's this line. Or you just rephrased the word and made it something of your own.
Stephen and Susan or something.
Stephen and Sue.
Got the character's name, yeah.
So I remember the good bits, and I thought Loretta, back to my analogy, as that character, as this character that I'm currently working on for this short film, Two Sides, I think would be really great.
Yeah.
You know, she's got Loretta's character has got the legs to bring this character to life. Yeah.
Fabulous. Because it was one of those moments where you're like, you walk away and you go, oh my God.
Yeah.
And it can destroy you. Oh, it was just career over. And I was like, it was only for my show reel, but still, it's, it's a big deal because you put the work in, you pay the money, all this sort of stuff. So that's really good advice. I love that. So let's use that takeaway, which is like, take care of yourself, your wellness, your health. Don't overcommit. Learn your lines and show up as your true, authentic self. I love this. I mean, it's all very Meisner, right?
It is very Meisner, which I don't tend to. I don't know what the word is, but stick by methods. There's Meisner, Stanislavski method, and I don't tend to kind of stick by that. And again, that's my nature of having taught myself things and learnt things by myself. I'm not a book reader. I'm not an academic.
Are you not a book reader?
Not really, no.
That so surprises me because you're always up to something.
Yeah, I read articles, but I'll skim through them.
Okay.
I listen to content.
Yeah.
I don't sit down and read, but I'll just research topic.
Do you watch film? Like, do you like? No.
It's
funny. I very rarely do as well.
Yeah, and do you know what? I would say 80% of people that I work with in the film industry don't watch film, which is awful because obviously we're working in an industry that we don't even want to fund ourselves, but we don't have the time.
Yeah, it's a time thing.
If I had the time to sit down in a cinema for like and films are long now. You got like 2.5 hour, 3 hour films. A friend of mine will tell you that the last time I went to the cinema, I slept through most of the film because it's the one time I cut off from the world, and I think. Yeah. Oh, this feels quite nice, actually.
Yeah, you do.
And I just go.
Yeah.
Because my phone's not ringing. And
of course, you're off call. You're not on call all the time. It is. It's But we're also time poor. We overstretch. We overcommit.
Yeah.
We live in that world now where a weekend is absolutely chocker for most people. But as you know, I mean, I don't go out. I really in the evenings. That's I just don't do it because I self-preservation. I just much prefer being home. So we did this amazing short which you directed. Taz, how do you pronounce his last name?
Ayub.
Thank you. He wrote.
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to seeing this. So when can we expect?
So what's
going on?
What's going on? So the colour grade's just been done. So Taz, I presented this idea to Taz. I said to Taz, I've got this idea, and it's kind of what we've been talking about. Some of the topics is that two different people can be presented with the same set of circumstances, but have incredibly different outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
So
like a parallel universe,
and how you react in life and how you carry yourself through life has a major impact on the effects, right? So I could go to person A and person B and present them both with the same job opportunity. Hey guys, you've both got the same job, you start Monday, right? Well, person A is totally committed to bringing their best version of themselves to that job. They have done the research on the company. They have looked at ways that they can improve that job. Look at the job description and say, okay, well, actually, I'm going to tweak some of this and make it more relevant for the outcomes. So that's person A. And then person B hasn't read about the company, hasn't researched anything about them, hasn't really understood how to adapt themselves to the job description, and as a result, they get fired, right?
Yeah.
Same opportunity, right?
Different approaches. Yeah.
And that is what the short film Two Sides is all about.
Yeah, which I love.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's like mindset, psychology, behaviour.
Yeah.
All this sort of stuff.
And we've used this kind of split screen approach in areas where, we see these two characters playing out at the same time and kind of transition between scenes. So it's an interesting concept, and I presented it to Taz and said, look, can you turn this into a screenplay? Let's make this a thing. So he wrote, we went back and forth, and then I had this idea there, and then I had this phone call with you when you were booking the course,
Yes.
as we've said. And I was like, this is the person for that role. So I went away and put the foot on the gas with developing that script a bit more.
Gosh.
Fast forward to now, and the cut's done, the colour grade has just been finished, and the sound is being rounded off as well. So yeah, that'll be done very soon, and
exciting.
it'll be doing the rounds at the film festivals and stuff like that. So once all that's done, then we're going to do a nice big screening in London.
Oh,
and
can't wait.
Be available online. And
I'm so excited for this. And like, what an amazing opportunity. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about you as a person and get a deeper dive into your sort of psyche and your mindset and how you set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
Because clearly at the age of 25, you've achieved a phenomenal amount in terms of like executing things and assuring that you are following a particular direction to get things done, because you're very successful. And at the age of 25, you have loads of different projects on simultaneously and you're executing all of them. So you're sort of firing off all cylinders. What are the things that you do, or is it simply just a mindset that you maintain?
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm not going to pretend that it's always easy and that my life is like perfectly dandy. But one thing you mentioned, you know, I'm 25 and I feel mentally a lot older, but my energy levels are that of a 20-year-old. So I've had a real battle with, I call it ageism. You know, people are like, oh God, you're only 25. So I've had to really work hard for that. But
in what sense have people sort of gone, oh gosh, you're only 25? And like, yeah, I can imagine actually, because you are a bit of a novelty. Look, at 25, I didn't know my arse from my elbow.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that you are having all these amazing feats is incredible. So it's like, how do you get to be in that lane? What are you doing?
Yeah. And it's led me to be very passionate about other people my age having equal opportunities and not being sort of, oh, well, you can't be a director, or you can't be a manager, you can't manage a team, you're only 25. But in terms of success, I am very much an outcomes driven person. I like results. And I think creatives often fall into just being a creative, whereas I'm probably more balance of, and I've only learnt this maybe in the last few years, I'm as much an entrepreneur as I am a creative, and the entrepreneur side likes results. And you have to think like a sort of senior level director of a business with my own businesses. I have to do that naturally, but also as a filmmaker, I don't need to focus on the nitty gritty, how somebody's going to travel from one place to another to make that work. I just have to think about the outcomes and work backwards. So the way my mind works is I look at what I want and I just work backwards from there and determine the challenges that are set before me to achieve that want. So I've just launched a new business, Crew Studio.
Yeah.
And the want from that is I want to educate other filmmakers, no matter their age, and give them opportunities to work with some of the finest people in the industry. And I want to also produce content that entertains people, makes them laugh and inspires. That's my want. That's the end goal. Okay. And money, right? We make businesses to make money and to give ourselves financial freedom that enables us to go on holiday. So that's the want. And working backwards from there, it's like, okay, well, what do I need to make that happen? So
you're sort of reverse engineering.
Totally.
Which is a very new thing to me. And you're sort of taught that in manifestation.
Right.
Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Well, that is through and through. And I realized that this stems back to 12-year-old Nathan who got asked to make a website.
Yeah.
What's the want? What's the outcome? Well, the outcome is I need to make a website. What do I need to do to make that website? Well, I need to learn how websites are made. I need to learn the rules of coding. I need to learn about search engine optimization, all these boring things.
Right.
And that process that I learnt making that website has then applied to everything I've done since. So launching Crew Studio, I've worked backwards from there and I've looked at, okay, well, we need to surround the business. Any new business can be grown super quickly if it's surrounded by strong partnerships. So I've surrounded the business with partnerships with other people in the industry, other bigger businesses, to give it legs and to give it strength and support. I have I've built a very good website for it. Unfortunately, I could save on that because I know how to make websites.
Yeah.
I have injected the sort of the processes of courses. I've looked at ways to make revenue. So, what am I getting at? Well, I'm getting at, in order to be successful, you just have to set yourself an outcome. And I know it sounds really boring and really simple, but then figure out how to get there.
Sure, but you're actually missing a key ingredient here that most people are actually, and it's something called discipline.
Yeah.
So whilst, this is making amazing sense, but a lot of people haven't really, they struggle to find the discipline to do it. So it's like, it's so easy. Well, it's not, but it's, metaphorically speaking, to come up with an idea and then to sort of figure out how you're going to execute it. But that within itself, you got to get that discipline and consistency. So
everybody has great ideas.
Yeah.
Everyone, I mentioned this earlier.
Yeah.
Everyone has a great idea. A great idea is worth nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Processes, knowledge, and craft are worth far more than an idea. So many people have come to me and said, "Oh, I've got a really good idea for a film." Fantastic. Go and make it. Go and make that film. Write the script, get your cast, get the crew, get the kit, and make it. Then tell me you've got a really good idea for a film. Until then, your idea is great.
But it's just an idea.
It's an idea. I can write that on a fag packet now.
Yeah.
And it'll, I could, it means nothing. So,
yeah.
And the discipline thing,
yeah.
I'm obsessed with work.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
But I mean, that's phenomenal within itself. I too am, but that came much later to me in life. Like I messed around most of my life. It's only been like probably the last 3 years where I'm actually like done a 360.
Yeah.
So what I want to know is, as a child, have you always been like this? Has something happened to you? You don't have to talk about that, but like, how did you get into that headspace where you're like, you know what? I'm just going to knuckle down. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to show up. It's very easy to tell someone to go off and write the script and, do you know what I mean, follow through. But that's a lot. So what I want to know is, how did you get to doing all of this stuff? How did you discipline yourself to do it? Is it an innate thing that's built into you? Or
I probably get a lot of it from my mum. So it's just, I didn't have any siblings growing up. And it was, for the most part, just me and my mum. And she's an incredibly hard worker. And I've seen over the years how if she wants something, if she wants to achieve something, she has to go out and get it. You can always make more money. And
of course you can. That's the beauty of money.
That's really what I've learned from her, is that if she wanted something, she'd go and figure out how to get that and do it herself.
Is she positive as a person?
She is, yeah.
So you're blessed.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So I'm blessed with that.
Yeah.
So I get that work ethic from her, I guess. And even prior to the radio stuff, when I was 11, when I was about 8 or 9, this will make you laugh, I was DJing. I was running discos for kids.
Yeah.
I was doing DJing for other kids. It was called Block Rock Discos for kids by kids. That was my thing.
So cool. And how did you function? Did you just go to people's homes to do it?
Literally.
And halls and stuff like that?
Literally, yeah. So mum's line of work was printing and marketing and stuff like that. So she was like, okay, well, great. You want to do this? I'll get some leaflets made and let's put them in the local halls. So we put them in the local halls, and then I'm rocking up doing kids' discos, with a rubbish little speaker and a little mixing desk that really wasn't that professional. But the novelty that there's this 9-year-old kid doing my kid's disco. Yeah. And, if I look on that now, at 25 years old, it's like, God, what was I doing? But, in the space of 2 years...
Being a genius is what you're doing.
2 years, 3 years, I learned how to make the lighting look really professional.
Yeah.
The disco lights, how to improve the sound. Okay, I needed more kit. I learned how to mix music and beat sync and all that kind of stuff. And how did I learn? I taught myself. I'd sit there and think, well, this sounds rubbish. What do I do? Oh, right, that's at 128 BPM and this is at 130. They need to match. So I taught myself all of that. So that is like a subset of, okay, I wanted something, I wanted to entertain. How do I entertain? Well, I'm going to do kids' discos. So throughout life, looking back, and this comes back to the analogy that I've nicked from Steve Jobs of connecting the dots.
Yeah.
It's not until you look back and reflect, and I reflect on my childhood where I'm running kids' discos at 8 years old which is creative and also business savvy. That now that process as an 8-year-old still applies to my life now, which is kind of a
remarkable.
Bit of a joke.
But it sounds like you had fortunately, your mum was
Very
obviously very supportive and like instrumental in like supporting these desires and these dreams and like, yes, let's make that happen.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I totally respect that not everyone is in that position.
Yeah.
Not everyone has the parents around them that are like, go and do that thing.
Yeah.
But I'm always saying to people my age and younger, older, whoever, if you want to do something,
what's your advice?
Surround yourself with people that will support you, because there's some negativity out there.
Oh, yeah.
And that negativity can be your own parents, your own family. You know, we're all conditioned to a certain extent. I'm conditioned the way I am because of the way I've been raised. And yet somebody else could be conditioned the way they are because of their upbringing, which may well have been very negative.
Of course. And then you're a product of your own environment. So it's like so important to get curious about who are you spending your time with, and are these people healthy for you? And if they are family members, and I'm assuming people that are listening or watching to this are going to be of an age where they're adults. So you've got that free will to be able to go, well, actually, these people are holding me back or bringing me down. You've got to, and let's talk about that, sort of the people that you surround yourself with. Like, because that's so instrumental, that's crucial. And sometimes I think you have to isolate yourself a little bit to actually reflect and say, who am I, where are my energy spends? Who is depleting my energy? Who is, actually making me, supporting and celebrating my wins, bringing me joy. So let's talk about your friendships, like the sort of people that you choose to spend your time with. And what do you actually like to do in your spare time?
So friendships and relationships are, I think, vital to success. They're the biggest influence I've discovered over the years. Now, I don't have a lot of friends, right? I choose not to have a lot of friends because it can chip away at you. Really, it can. And when you have a lot of friends, and I'm quite a deep and investing person in somebody, if I've got a friendship, it's a thing, it's proper, it's real. So if they've got a lot of baggage, I take that baggage on. And in order to maintain the pace at which I work, I work at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I choose, if I want something, it's going to happen very quickly. If I'm surrounded by negativity, it's really going to get me down. So I have my pool of school friends who I mean, one of them, James, I have known literally since we were born. We literally have known each other our entire lives. And the rest of that group, really, we've grown up together. So we have an unspoken relationship. We are like brothers.
Bonded.
Totally bonded. We get each other. If we sit there in silence, there's nothing awkward about it. That's home for me. That's my home place.
That's beautiful.
And that brings out child Nathan. That brings out that, the
childlike sense of
totally
wonder, and you're secure. You're
and
secure
it
with
makes
these
me
people.
feel, secure, safe, and everything. And those are the group. That's the group of friends that I choose to go on holiday with and travel around the world and do fun things.
Yes.
And then since then, you get to sort of choose more relationships and more friends and people that you meet. And what I've discovered is that sometimes people have incredibly dark problems which can really start to spill onto you without you even realizing, and they will all of a sudden come round and bite you in the arse.
Oh yeah.
I had a friendship for a good few years with someone who became a really close good friend of mine. And it turns out that they had a lot of problems. They had a lot of personal issues which I hadn't quite registered. I mean, that friendship has changed me as a person. I mean, it's matured me a lot because I've become so much more aware of how somebody in such a dark place can really disturb your own energy.
Sure. And transfer.
Totally.
Energetically, because we're all energy.
Yeah.
And so that affected you so profoundly that, did you have to terminate that friendship, or did you?
I had to put in a lot of sort of, boundaries. And I hadn't, I suppose, what are the takeaways from that? Well, you can't necessarily identify it early on, but you have to be super. The phrase is, don't put your emotions in the hands of somebody else. And
Yes.
that's what I had done. I had such a good bond with this person that if we were having a good time with each other and we were having a good laugh, then I felt great. If they were down, I was down.
So it's sort of potentially codependent.
Yeah, it became like that.
But that's natural. You know, we collectively like to, you know, but when you become bonded with somebody, you sort of take everything on, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And then you feel the heaviness of something that's not serving you, and you can't quite work it out, can you? You're like, well, I don't know, you can't put your finger on it. But it's a great opportunity to take a step back and say, I'm investing too much of myself into this person.
And I think I was naive in that I've grown up and been surrounded by incredibly positive people. I've got a positive family.
Yeah.
My childhood friends are positive people. We're not... You know, we haven't faced horrible circumstances that I know some people have. You know, we've all got good homes. We've all got strong family that support us and inspire us and encourage us. Not everyone has that.
They don't.
And that was my own naivety. I was making friends with somebody who's clearly had a not the best upbringing.
Sure.
And as a result, that's still embedded within them. And they didn't know who they were.
Yeah. And when somebody doesn't know who they are, boy, is there a blaze of fire behind them, because you don't know where you stand. No. And because they don't know where they stand.
No, they don't.
With themselves. So you're getting so many different people from one day to the next. And you're getting dopamine because you're getting that great time, and then you're getting an absolute falling flat on your face going, and then you can't help but take that stuff personally because... Yeah, you take it on.
And then they blame you anyway.
And that is a time to like cut the cord. Because they can't look at themselves.
Yeah.
And that's interesting, because that sort of behavior and mindset and inability to maybe, you know, start looking in the mirror and go, what are the things that I dislike about myself as a person? How am I showing up for myself, my relationships, my work? You know, this all is to be true, I think, in film industry and acting and directing. It's like you got to unstitch a few things, I think, to be able to work in this industry.
Totally.
Because you're dealing with an awful lot of drama, right?
Yeah. You've got to know who you are.
You've got to know who you are.
You've got to be comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not lucky. I've worked hard on doing various things in life that I know where I am and who I am. I'm very comfortable. And all of a sudden I started to not know who I was because of this relationship. I thought maybe I am depressed. Yeah. Maybe I am struggling. And then took a break from it. I was like, oh, no, I'm not. I was just around someone who was depressed.
Yeah.
And you know,
and you're living in a twilight world because they are.
Yeah, and you can't take that emotional baggage on. No. You've got to look out for people and you've got to support them. But you've got to tell them. And if they can't take it, then, you know, it's on them.
It's on them. And I think, you know, you can't fix people.
No.
You can't.
And I was trying so hard to.
You can't.
That's the mistake. I get that from my mum. She's very paternal, right? And she fostered a lot when I was young. So I'd learnt this process of nurturing people. And I was trying to nurture. Yeah. And wasn't getting results, and I was like, "Oh my god, yeah, this is killing."
Yeah, and it's a painful experience to have to go through, because you can't help but feel that there is an exchange. It's like, you know, we are human, and we sort of want to feel like there's a return. It's like, you know, you're investing all your energy, time, sometimes money, sometimes opportunity, and you're going, I'm not really getting a transaction here, other than a lot of drama or you know, damage. So it's important to really, I think, be mindful of who you're spending your time with. You know, for one, that I don't, very much like you, like I just don't see people. I like have people I can call up and hang out with. I choose not to. Yeah. Not to be unkind. I much prefer my own company. I know who I am. I'd rather spend my time, money and energy on myself.
Yes.
Call me selfish. I love it. That's great. I like to be selfish in that sense, because I'm furthering myself, educating myself, and arriving in a place where I go, I enjoy your time to myself.
Totally. And I think that's it. You've got to enjoy spending time with yourself. There's people that are constantly trying to be around other people when it's not necessarily best for them. And you mentioned the transactional thing. I've got sort of two analogies for transactions.
Yes.
One is the energy transaction. You know, when you come away if you're wanting to succeed in business, if you're wanting to succeed in your acting, in your filmmaking, whatever it may be, what sort of transactions are you making on a daily basis with your own energy?
Yeah.
Are you surrounding yourself with other really bright, positive filmmakers and other bright, positive actors? Or are you going back to your friends who are saying, oh, you're never going to make it. Oh, you're never going to do well at that. What's that going to do for your energy?
Drag you down.
It's going to drag you down.
Yeah.
So that's the one version of transaction. And the other one is money and time as a currency. I get this so much from people my age, right? Everyone in their 20s, a lot of my circles and my network, not friends, but people that I work with, live in and around London. And they're like, oh, why do you drive? Well, because my time is currency. And if I'm on a tube, I'm spending time. So, they'll say, oh, why are you spending all that money on a car? Well, you're spending all of your time on a tube. Whereas I'm spending my money on a car where I've got signal permanently, so I can make calls, I can make business calls.
Yeah.
I've got access to my own space where I can think. Put me on a tube, I can't think. Put me on a bus, I can't think. I'm going to get distracted by all these people.
Yeah, yeah.
As soon as I get in my car, I'm home. I'm basically home. If I'm leaving somewhere, if I'm going somewhere, that's my space to think, to process, to make calls, to make things happen. So the transaction of time versus money, when people say, oh, well, why are you spending money on going on a holiday? Well, because the currency back from that is going to be newfound life.
Yes, and you talk a bit about taking a holiday and resetting and the importance of taking a holiday and
Well, that is it's nice to get away. Let's not deny that it's nice to just go and see some sun and a change of scenery. But B, you can use the holiday example as something. So if you're doing the same, I've got this analogy. If you do the same thing, you get the same results.
So that's an Albert Einstein quote. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing twice or over and over again and getting the exact same results.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's true. Because
you are a genius. You do realise that. Yeah.
But it's true because if you're going to the same job every day, and this is why I get frustrated with people my age who say, oh, it's just not working out for me. Well, what are you doing differently to what you did yesterday to improve your life?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I went to the gym. Okay, great. Yeah. Well done. You did the bare minimum that the human body requires to keep yourself physically fit. Okay? So if you... back to the holiday example, sometimes you need that reset, not just because it's a bit of sun, but you're stuck in a cycle. You're stuck in a loop. You're going to the same coffee shop every morning. You're getting in the same train. You're going to the same office, and then you're coming home and having the same 4 or 5 dinners a week.
Yeah.
And you're doing that every single week and going to the pub on Friday, getting pissed, and then doing it all over again on Monday. Why do we enjoy holidays so much? Because we're breaking the routine. And you asked me earlier, do you like routine? I fucking hate routine. I can't stand it. No week of mine is the same. Because if it was the same, what would I be getting? The same
results.
Yeah.
And it's crucial to get a change of scenery because it opens up a whole new different dimension in the brain.
And you don't, I don't want to sound all sort of like, oh, it's just so easy, just go on holiday, because not everyone has the funds to go and book a flight.
Of course, but you can certainly take a different direction to work.
Totally.
Or you could go to a different coffee house, or you could order a different thing on the menu.
Yeah.
Be bold. Step outside of the matrix, your comfort zone. But this is the thing, unfortunately, and this is a deeper conversation. Maybe we do part 2, because I'm just like addicted to things like quantum physics and, understanding, the universal laws of attraction and but not to go, of course. We do live in this matrix world where we're kind of like, okay, we're going to get up, we're going to brush our teeth, we're going to get dressed, we're going to roll into work. Step outside of that and do things, to your point, which will obviously expand and enhance where you're going.
And my advice is, it's not easy don't just throw everything in the air and change it. It's like, right, I'm going to start the gym on Monday, then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that. I'm going to paint the house. I'm going to get myself... it's going to be too much. It's just not going to work. Just make small changes to begin with. And, if you're wanting to... Let's say that you're in a job that you don't want to do. You're working in an office and you want to be a filmmaker. All you've got to do is just spend just allocate 15 minutes a day
Yeah.
to learning about shot sizes. Then 2 weeks later, you'll really understand shot sizes. Then you can move on and say, okay, well, I'm going to start learning about actors. What do actors work for 15 minutes a day? Yeah, whatever it is. All you've got to do is allocate something different to your day.
And it sounds so easy,
rather
doesn't
than
it?
scrolling.
Well, exactly. And this is the thing, and it's a choice. It's a choice, and you get to make that choice. And you're right. It's like it only really takes 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't want to do that.
No.
Which is very unfortunate. But what do you do?
Yeah.
So is this the sort of stuff that you are practicing, obviously, then? You are...
Yeah, I'm always trying to... I'm learning more than doing.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I'm learning more than anything. And that is... I love it. If I'm not learning, I really freak out.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
Yeah, we are the same person. This is crazy.
I start to panic. But what's really important is don't spend your whole life learning, because then you'll never execute. You'll never deliver. You know? If you spend... there's a point where you have to start taking risks, and there's a point where you have to start just doing the thing. So I could spend years learning more about filmmaking, but actually I learn more making a film than I do a year of reading and watching videos. So A, there's the benefit of learning from doing, and B, what's the point in spending your life learning if you're never going to produce something?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily just filmmaking that applies to. I think that's everything.
Totally agree.
You know, your opening point was, how do you sort of quantify success or find success, and how do you maintain moving forward?
Right.
I've realised that from a young age, I've always assumed that I'm going to win.
Why?
Now, it's funny because if you ask me about sports, like sports as a kid, no, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in winning. I'm not actually that competitive when it comes to things like sports or games. But when it comes to, let's say I'm applying for a new job, I'll just assume I'm getting that job.
God, I'd love to have that mindset.
Now,
where does that come from?
I wish I could tell you, but I think it's just being truly plugged into visualizing what that looks like. Now, you can't just think, oh, I'm going to win the lottery, because it's not tangible. You have to be able to tangibly imagine what that thing's going to look like.
So you're talking manifestation.
Yeah. So if I'm let's say I'm applying for that job, right? And I can tangibly see myself driving there every day. I can tangibly see myself working with those people. I can imagine the sort of relationships that we'd have. I can immediately think about some things that I can action in that job to, bring to their place. And as a result, I'm assuming that I'm getting that job, and the interview's really just a formality.
I mean, God, that sounds so magnificent. I mean, so you're sort of being like, super visual.
Yeah.
But it's non-negotiable. It's like, no, I've got it. It's mine.
Yeah.
Which is probably a testament to the success that you have.
Yeah.
Because if you've been applying that, well, naturally you're going to get it.
Yeah.
But for most people, nerves get in the way, or, doubt and things like that. Where is your strength coming from?
Don't get me wrong, I get nervous.
I don't think you do.
Oh, no, I do. I will get nervous.
In what sort of setting?
I will get nervous when things are when they're different to what I've done. So as a human, we have this sort of bandwidth. Now, we start here as a baby, and we've only experienced that. And as you go through life, you experience new things in different shapes and sizes. And as you experience those new things, if you were to do them again, they're easy, right? Because you've been there and you've done that. But when you do it for the first time, it's challenging.
Yeah.
But I've realised that if I do that thing, it didn't kill me. I'm still here. So I can do something new. But just quickly back to that law of assumption that I have, which is assuming that I'm going to get that job, or assuming that when I build my business, it's going to be a success. And I try to let it infect those that are around me, but it doesn't always work. Employees of mine will say, oh, yeah, shame if we're not going to get that. What do you mean we're not going to get that? We are getting that contract. Period. We're getting it.
Yeah, right. So it's a mindset. It's an attitude.
Yeah. But the trade-off is when you don't, it really, really can get you down. And you have to pick yourself up and really, sort yourself out. And because it's like, what do you mean I didn't get that thing. It means that you get more wins generally, or certainly in my experience, I've had more wins because I've assumed that I'm going to get that thing. But when I haven't, for those small percentages of times when things don't work out, that's tiring.
How do you recover? Does it not, because to somebody else, just on a sort of comparison scale, someone else would receive that and go, I've fallen into total downward spiral. I can't get myself back up. What do you attribute to you just like get back up and get on with it?
Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And what I mean by that in this sense is I've got a lot of different interests. I like engineering. I like accents. I like film. I like web design. I like graphic design. I like music.
Golf.
I like golf. I like lots of different things. So if one of those things ends up being a bit rubbish and it goes wrong, I'll just go to the other thing for a while and then come back to it and come back and rebuild.
I have to interrupt you because that's amazing. So you've just identified that you have a really solid sense of self.
Yeah.
Because you have filled your life with other things. You're not solely reliant on just one particular thing, which is how people fall down.
They do. They rely on one particular thing and one person.
Yeah. So that's the message. Do not do that.
Don't put all your eggs in one person or in one career.
Yeah.
You know? And I think for entrepreneurship and from a director's point of view for film, you can't. What are you going to be a director about? You know, let's say that my only interest is golf. Oh, he's the golf director. He directs golf films.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only thing that I can bring to the table.
Yeah.
Whereas I fill my life with lots of things so that I can direct lots of different genres and lots of different styles of work.
Amazing. Love that. So what's next for you? Where do you sort of see, I know this is such a generic sort of
Where do you see yourself
corporate,
in 10 years?
where do you see yourself in 5 years? No, but like, where do you have a vision to like move overseas? Do you, I mean, to me, I'm like, you're like the next Tarantino. What are you looking for? What are you hoping to achieve at some point?
You know, I'm getting to a point now where, this sounds ridiculous, at 25, I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting on. I'm getting on. But you've got to bear in mind, I've been working for a long time. So most people's working career when they're 25 is maybe 5 years.
Yeah.
I've been working since I was 8.
Doing the DJs.
Doing DJ
discos.
stuff.
Yeah.
So I've been working a long time. So I'm now at that point where I'm like,
retiring.
Okay. We need to like seriously, you know, go from, you know, one level of income to a whole new scale. So what do I see next? Well, I'm really excited to have just launched Crew Studio, which we've touched on. It's a brand new business. It's a production company for film and TV, whilst also educating the next generation of filmmakers. We're providing opportunities where people such as myself 6-7 years ago can now get in the room with other industry professionals, work with proper cinema gear, top, you know, cameras like Arri Alexas and all the gear that goes with it, and learn from people who are in the business.
Incredible.
So that's currently operating. But back to my point earlier, I think of outcomes and then work backwards. Crew Studio is just a stepping stone towards another outcome.
Yeah.
You know, there's always an outcome ahead of the current outcome.
Yeah.
So people are looking at what I'm doing with Crew Studio. I'm already looking at what's 10 years on from Crew Studio.
Your streets ahead.
And what's 10 years on from Crew Studio is hopefully a portfolio of feature films, a couple of series in the bag, and on a personal level, being mobile. I'm quite frankly a bit sick of the UK. I'm done with the mindset here. I've never known so many pushbacks, so much negativity, especially when I, being a 25-year-old, tell people I'm starting a business, I'm doing this, and they're like, all right, yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
And they really put you down. And I'm not saying that it's all happy days in every other country at the minute, because I know the world generally has entered this sort of state of struggle. But the UK, I don't think is the place for me long term. And when I say mobile, I don't think anywhere's for me long term. I don't like routine and I don't like settling. I would like to set myself up in a place where I'm going to fly to Italy this morning.
Oh, don't.
And then once I'm done there, I'm going to spangle on over to Paris.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Mix it up. Go and see the world.
Yeah.
Don't be stagnant.
No.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So that's
where we shall find you.
That's the 10-year
Yeah.
sort of end goal, and working backwards from that, I'm doing everything I possibly can. And you know, the manifestation thing and the point of working backwards and trying to figure out what it is that you need to get there. Sometimes these things won't necessarily be really clear.
No.
You won't necessarily know what they are. As long as you're doing something every day to work towards that thing, bigger stepping stones will reveal themselves.
Yeah.
Crew Studio revealed itself. It seems so natural, and people are like, wow, how have you grown a business so quickly and so fast and got so many operations in place? Well, it was all there. This is 15 years of work now turning into
unfolding
something.
and collapsing.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that revealed itself as part of the process.
Yeah.
And as I continue to move forward, more milestones will reveal themselves. There might be 4 or 5 more businesses between now and 10 years' time.
Can't wait.
I don't know what they are yet.
Can't wait. Amazing. Thank you so much. I've loved having you here. I could talk
Thank
for
you.
hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
I
we
really
need a part
could.
2. Yeah.
Let's do a part 2.
Let's do a part 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm up for it.